Yesterday, you read something in English. An article, a news story, maybe a chapter of a book. Right now, without looking, tell me what it said. Hard, isn't it? And here's the frustrating part. You understood every word while you were reading it. So the problem isn't your English, the problem is what happens after you read. I'm an ESL specialist here in the US, and I've spent years watching learners read more and remember less. Today, I'm giving you 5 memory techniques, every one of them backed by real research, that will change what you retain from everything you read in English. Here are the 5 techniques we're covering today. Number 1. The blank page test. Number 2. The 137 comeback. Number 3. The why is that trick. Number 4. The movie in your head. And number 5. The 60-second teach. 5 names, 5 minutes each to learn, and you can start using all of them tonight. But before we get to number 1, I need to tell you something about number 4. It's the technique my students resist the most. Almost every one of them says it feels strange or childish, or like a waste of time. It's also the one that works the fastest. So stay with me. And first, let's talk about why you forget in the first place. Why you forget. In the 1880s, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus did an experiment on himself. He memorized long lists of meaningless syllables, things like VIP, DAX, LOM, and then tested how much he still had, hour by hour, day by day. What he found became famous. Within about an hour, he'd lost roughly half of it. Within a day, closer to 2/3. We call that the forgetting curve, and it drops fast at the beginning and then flattens out. Now, you're not memorizing nonsense syllables. You're reading real English with meaning and story and context, so you hold on to it better than Ebbinghaus did, but not as much better as you'd hope. That's why yesterday's article is already fading. So what do most learners do about it? 2 things. They reread and they highlight. In 2013, a group of researchers led by John Dunlosky did something useful. They reviewed 10 popular study techniques and ranked them by how well they actually work. Rereading, low. Highlighting, low. The 2 most common strategies in the world, sitting at the bottom of the list. Here's why. When you reread a paragraph, it feels easier the second time. And your brain reads that feeling as I know this now. But easy isn't the same as learned. You've recognized the text, not remembered it. Which brings us to the idea underneath all 5 techniques today. Memory isn't built by exposure. It's built by effort. Every trick I'm about to show you is a way of making your reading slightly harder. On purpose. That difficulty is not a problem. That difficulty is the learning. Let's start with number 1. Trick number 1. The blank page test. Here's the problem it solves. When you finish reading something, you feel like you know it. That feeling arrives about 2 seconds after your eyes leave the page, and it is almost always a lie. You recognize the material. You can't produce it. So we're going to find out which one you actually have. Here's the research. In 2006, 2 researchers, Henry Roediger and Jeffrey Karpicki, gave students short passages to learn. One group read the passage, then read it again. The other group read it once, then closed it, and wrote down everything they could remember. 5 minutes later, the rereading group did better. They felt better about it too. 1 week later, it flipped completely. The group that had tested themselves remembered around 60% of the passage. The rereading group was down near 40. Same time spent. Very different result. Let's do it. Look for an English paragraph to read through once, normally. Now cover it up. Write down everything you remember. Perfect sentences are not necessary. Fragments are fine. Now uncover it and compare. What did you miss? Whatever's missing is the part you never actually had, and now you know exactly where to look. The mistake almost everyone makes: peeking. You get stuck, you feel that discomfort, and you glance back at the text. Don't. That stuck feeling is your brain searching for the memory, and the searching is what builds the connection. If you peek, you skip the part that works. One line to remember. If you can't write it down, you don't know it yet. Trick number 2, the 137 comeback. The problem this solves is the forgetting curve we talked about earlier. Reading something once, even carefully, even with a blank page test, it fades. Not because you're a bad learner, because that's what memory does. The fix isn't more time, it's better timing. In 2006, a team led by Nicholas Cepeda analyzed hundreds of experiments on this question. Is it better to study something in one long session or in short sessions spread across days? Spread out one, consistently, and often by a lot. Same total minutes. More remembered. And there's something specific here for us as language learners. Research on vocabulary suggests you need somewhere in the range of 8 to 20 meaningful encounters with a word before it's really yours. 8 to 20. So when you meet unsealing today and forget it by Friday, that's not failure. That was encounter number 1. Here's the schedule. Day 1, you read the article and do your blank page test. Day 3, you come back for 3 minutes. Day 7, 3 minutes again. And coming back does not mean rereading. It means blank page test again. Cover the article, write what you remember, then check. 3 minutes. The mistake here: doing all 3 sessions on the same day because you're motivated. That's not spacing. That's just rereading with extra steps. The gap between sessions is the ingredient. Without the gap, you have nothing. 1 line to remember. 3 minutes on day 3 beats 30 minutes tonight. Trick number 3. The why is that trick. This one solves a different problem: the disconnected fact. You read something, you understand it, but it just sits there in your head with nothing attached to it. And isolated facts are the easiest things to lose. The technique is one question. After each paragraph, you ask, why is that true? Researchers call this elaborative interrogation, and in that same 2013 review by Dunlosky's team, the one that put rereading at the bottom, this ranked in the moderate range, which sounds unexciting until you notice what it costs. 10 seconds, no app, no notebook, no method. 1 question. The reason it works: when you ask why, you're forced to connect the new fact to things you already know, and a fact with 5 connections to it is a fact you can find later. A fact with none is a fact you lose. The mistake: asking what instead of why. What did the paragraph say? Is a memory check. Useful, but that's trick number 1's job. Why is that true? Is what builds the connection. Different question, different result. And a bonus for us: answering why in English out loud is exactly the kind of practice that makes your speaking more fluent. You're doing 2 things at once. 1 line to remember. Facts float away. Reasons stay put. Trick number 4, the movie in your head. This is the one I promised you at the start. The one my students resist hardest. and the one that works fastest. Here's the problem it solves. When you read in a second language, everything gets stored as language. Only as language. You're working with words, grammar, word order, and it all goes into your memory in one form. Words in, words out. One way in, one way back. Here's the research. A psychologist named Alan Pivio had an idea he called dual coding theory. Dual means two. His idea: your brain can store the same information twice, once as words and once as a picture. And it keeps them in two separate places. So if you store something both ways, you have two ways to find it later. And when you can't find the words, which happens to all of us in a second language, you can still find the picture. The picture brings the words back. So as you read, you make pictures, on purpose. Now for the hard part, and this is where people give up, some ideas can't be pictured. For example, what if a news article says government construction projects are expensive and slow? How do you picture expensive and slow? You don't picture the sentence, you picture a scene around it. It doesn't need to be correct. It doesn't need to be clever. It just needs to be yours, because you made it, and that's what makes it stick. The mistake people make: they decide their pictures are too silly. But they feel silly because they're vivid. Vivid means strong and clear in your mind. And that's exactly the point. Nobody sees them but you. One line to remember. If you can see it, you can find it later. Trick number 5, the 60-second teach. The problem: everything so far has happened inside your head or on paper. But the strongest test of understanding is explaining something to another person. Because the moment you try, every gap shows up immediately. You don't need another person, you need 60 seconds and an empty room. The research on this is genuinely strange. In 2014, John Nestoiko and colleagues gave students a passage to study. They told one group they'd be tested on it afterward. They told the other group they'd have to teach it to someone. Then they tested everybody. Nobody taught anything. The students who expected to teach remembered more. Just preparing to explain changed how they read. Here's the practice. Close an article. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Out loud, in English, explain the paragraph as if you're telling a friend who hasn't read it. That's it. 60 seconds. And notice what just happened. You practiced retrieval, you practiced speaking, and you practiced explaining in your own words 3 things at once, in 1 minute. The mistake: doing it silently. Speaking out loud is uncomfortable, and that's why people skip it. But silent explanation lets you cheat. Your inner voice fills gaps with vague feelings. Your actual voice can't. When you say it out loud and stop mid-sentence, you've found something you didn't know. One line to remember: explain it out loud or you don't know if you know it. The combined routine. So that's 5 techniques. And right now you might be thinking, that's 5 new things to do every time I read something. I don't have time for that. You don't need 5. You need one routine that contains all 5. Here it is. Step 1. Read an article once, normally. Don't stop, don't take notes, don't look up every word. Just read it. And while you're reading, make your pictures. That's trick 4, and it costs you nothing because you're doing it as you go. Step 2. Close the article and explain it out loud. 60 seconds. That's trick 5. And while you're explaining, ask yourself why. Why is this happening? Why is that true? That's trick 3. 2 techniques, 1 minute, at the same time. Step 3. Write down what you remember. 2 minutes. That's trick 1, the blank page test. Then look back at the article and find your gaps. Step 4. Come back on day 3 and day 7. 3 minutes each. That's trick 2. And coming back just means doing step 3 again. Cover it. Write what you remember. Check. One more thing, and this matters. Don't do this with everything you read. If you're reading for pleasure, a novel, a news story you're curious about, just read it. Enjoy it. That's good for your English too. Save the routine for what you actually want to keep. 1 article a week is enough. Do it well, on something you care about, and you'll feel the difference within a month. Now, one thing before you go. In the comments, tell me 2 things. Which technique you're trying this week and what you're going to read. 1 line. Number 3. On a news article. That's all. I ask because writing it down makes you much more likely to actually do it. And because it tells me which of these 5 really works for learners at your level, which tells me what to make next. And if this helped, hit like and send it to one person who's learning English. That's how these videos find the people who need them. If you want more like this, subscribe. Pick one technique. Use it on the next thing you read. That's all it takes to start. I'll see you in the next one.